great to have you with us on this edition where we look at the numbers, the figures, and how it directly affects you and your businesses. I am Divine Alex. So let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headlines. Nigeria's company income tax collections climbed to 2.96 trillion naira in quarter 3 of 2025, which is a 6.55% increase from the 2.78 trillion naira in quarter 2, with the foreign companies contributing the largest share at 1.75 trillion naira, which, according to the latest data from the NBS National Bureau of Statistics, pointed to improving corporate profitability and stronger tax compliance across key sectors of the economy. And to the next, where we have a major warning coming from the World Bank Group saying about 1.2 billion young people in developing economies are expected to enter the workforce over the next 10 to 15 years. But projections show the global economy may only create around 400 million jobs, raising serious concerns about unemployment pressures, migration, and long-term economic stability. Now let's turn away from that completely to a quick update that's affecting air travelers that forced Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, to order the suspension of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria's cashless airport toll policy just 4 days after it launched on March 1st, after the system reportedly caused major gridlock at airports in Lagos and Abuja, leaving many passengers stuck in queues and missing their flights. I think the video was just something else, because if you were anywhere around these locations, you would have understood. I think there was even a particular video that trended from a particular foreigner trying to make his way down to the airport, and he had massive queue. The traffic was disheartening. Now, in addition to the airport payment disruptions, we have the airline Ebom Air that has also announced a new safety restriction following a directive from the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority warning passengers that power banks must no longer be placed in overhead bins or even checked baggage on flight. See, that's for people that some people will say, oh, you could easily just check it in. This time around, Ebom Air is saying that it is no more. So if you are going to travel with Ebom Air, you should just know that if you have anything associated with your phone, be sure to be able to charge your phones early, or as well, maybe when you get down to the airport, you could see how any of the airport officials can assist you with means of charging your phone, because power banks are no longer accepted, especially with Ebom Air. Now, this whole development is associated with the fact that they said flights due to the fire risks associated with the lithium-ion batteries, and it is also a move that aligns with global aviation safety standards. Now let's go to the next development, where if you may have noticed, right, I think you may have noticed that petrol prices has changed again. Yes, this is because the Nigerian National Petroleum Company (NNPC) Limited has raised the pump price of PMS in Abuja to 960 naira per litre from the initial 875 naira, coming just after Dangote Petroleum Refinery increased its ex-depot price to 874 per litre, as global crude prices surged about $84 per barrel amid escalating tensions that involved the United States, Israel, and Iran, as well as the Middle East, with marketers that are now urging the federal government to supply more crude to the refinery in Naira to help stabilize fuel prices locally. So here's an interesting move for Nigeria's economy, taking us to the next update, where the Central Bank of Nigeria has added locally sourced, internationally refined gold into its foreign reserves, taking total gold holdings to about $3.5 billion. This is a strategy that strengthens our reserves without using foreign currency and also supports the domestic mining sector. Now, still on the CBN, yesterday the Central Bank of Nigeria announced plans to offer 1.05 trillion naira in treasury bills across 91, 182 and 384 day tenors, marking the first auction after its recent rate cuts today. But the market responded with far more enthusiasm than expected, with the subscriptions hitting 2.34 trillion naira. By the close of the auction yesterday, the CBN allotted 1.1 trillion naira, reflecting stronger investor appetite for government securities, especially longer-term bills, and signaling continued confidence in Nigeria's fixed income markets, even as yields rise. And deeper into the market, we have February. That was a stellar month for the Nigerian exchange, with the all share index jumping 16.6% to 192.827 points, inching closer to 200,000 mark and recording its strongest monthly performance since the 35th rally back in January 2024, despite a slight 1.11% dip in the final week after 3 consecutive weeks of gains. We are going to be looking at these stories and more on this episode after the break. I am Divine Alex. Stay with us. You are welcome back. This is still the Business Lens on Rapid Television Abuja. So let's get into it proper. But I'm not going to be having this conversation alone because I have economist Abiola Dikunle from Keto Markets. Good morning, economist Abiola. Okay, thank you so much. I don't know what happened that you're not here, that we are, going to have this conversation from the other end of that line. I don't know if you heard when I talked about the headlines, because I wanted us to talk about the market this week. But before then, I wanted to get your thoughts on what, the whole situation with the fan, saying, oh, we are going to digitalize everything. The toll gates has to be digitalized. And then all of a sudden, they're not coming back to say, oh, we can't anymore. And Tinubu is saying suspend it, because the whole situation with the fact that they brought this and it was announced, right, and then it was supposed to start on March 1st, and then today being the 5th day, they're already saying let's suspend it. So what do you think of this? Do you think that maybe there's no proper planning? Did you just wake up and just decided to bring in things without proper assessing how this can actually affect people, or is there something that we're supposed to note from this particular thing? So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I told you then when we had this particular topic, I said that it sometimes feels as if when decisions are made in Nigeria, there's this feeling that it's just someone just woke up and just says, oh, let's do this way. It doesn't really feel as if stakeholders sat together, debated, reached a conclusion, and are able to now say, oh, let's go with this solution. Okay, in my estate, for example, now we're trying to employ an app that we can use for access in the estate, security in the estate, and we've been debating on the WhatsApp group now for about 2 weeks. That's just the small estate. Debating to which one is better, do we do this, how do we deploy it, how do we know who stays in the estate. Now a whole fan wants to go digital, wants to go cashless. And you did not think about every corner. I went to the airport, I think yesterday, and I got there, I slowed down, I went, I wanted to pay, and they were like, no, it's free for now, and that's because whatever they tried failed. And why won't it fail? You're trying to go cashless, okay? You should have looked at the whole scenario. That place is a place where you pass through under 10 seconds, 20 seconds max, you should be through that gate, whichever toll gate in this world. The first question, which I know we don't want to go into, is why are you even charging a toll gate? First of all, I'm not talking about the toll, I'm talking about everything. Toll gate, for example. Okay. Now, let's assume that there's even a reason to charge at the toll gate. The second thing is, how do you go cashless when you have random people, okay, coming to the airport? Okay, it's not as if the federal government has what's the name of that currency stuff they were trying to do, something e-naira at the point. Not as if it was widely adopted. If it had been widely adopted, maybe somehow they will tell you to go and get e-naira cards, and you use that card and swipe and pay for everything at any fan location. But that's not there. So what exactly are you building this cashless move? What exactly are you building it on? Practically nothing. Another way to go is you could be selling the cards in different, different amounts. Maybe there's a card of 5,000, there's a card of 20,000, so that you just buy it, and whenever you're swiping, it's reducing your balance. All these things were not implemented. There are so many ways to go about it. But in 2026, for crying out loud,
right? 2026,
cashless. Cashless as how? Now people there's a gridlock. Oh, divine. See, there are some things that we even say that sometimes that we'll say, okay, I've made this example before, that if gamers or gaming companies want to bring out games, after the game has been done, then they now go through demo testing. They call professional gamers, maybe about 100 of them, give it to them. Those who play it from beginning to the end, I'll give you their feedback. It is called control testing. or isolated testing. Now, if you want to do something like this, you could isolate an airport in Nigeria that is not so busy. Then you implement it there and you watch for the feedback. Maybe you take Uyo, maybe you take an airport that, or Ibadan, Akure, or Kaduna. Then you take those airports and try to go cashless with them. Watch it for 2-3 weeks, get the feedback from them, make sure you correct everything. You cannot just go and say you want to be cashless in Lagos airport when you have thousands of people coming there every day. So this was expected, and everybody will always learn economics by fire by force.
They will learn economics by fire by force, according to you. Okay, thank you so much for that one. Before we still go into what we have for them today, I also want to get your view on this few things. We talked about this, right? It was on Monday where we talked about the fact that many people have no knowledge of the fact that when some things are happening far away, they think it's just there. They don't even know that these things have a way of getting to us. And then, as on Tuesday, I now saw the first report that said NNPC has increased their fuel pump price, and other stations have started adopting to it. And I think last night when we went to get fuel, we got around 1,200. Yes, I think that's what we got yesterday. Now, I know that a lot of people are also, the whole changes is what many people don't even understand. Even when I was trying to talk to my friend, yes, I'm like, go and check, how much is fuel in your area? And they were looking at me like, why am I even bringing up fuel, when I told them that it was related to the whole tensions and the conflict that is ongoing between US, Israel, Iran, and then in the Middle East. Now, I also want to get your view on that. Now, I remember, I don't know if it was with you on the business lens that we talked about the fact that there should not be an immediate reaction. But right now, as of today, the immediate reaction is already here. What do you think?
Well, whether we like it or not, the market is the market. I think the discussion was on the social media space, and the discussion was more of the market. What makes up the market. If you look at any stock market in the world, there is always the real substance, which is the value of the company. Is usually between 0 to, let's say, less than 50%. Then the hype, the fundamentals, the news, the noise is usually from that to 100%. So you can have a company A that the real value, the work they are doing, in terms of their stocks, might just be 10 naira of the stock, but the stock might be selling for 21 naira. That remaining 11 naira is the hype, is what people perceive, what people feel should happen. I remember when a particular president came on board, and everybody was like, this president is known for discipline, this president is a no-nonsense president. Without the president uttering a statement, civil servants were coming to work 8 o'clock. Because I have some friends, everybody was like body language, everybody was behaving themselves. Now, there's always a difference between the substance and the hype. That's just an example. Now, the same thing for what's going on in the crude oil market. People are already getting the feelers that the price of crude oil is going to go up, because there is no progress based on the news I've been watching. There's no progress yet in terms of the area being controlled by Iran. So as far as there's no progress, that means that there will be reduction in the supply of crude oil and PMS. And once there's a reduction, the hype of the market has already gone before it. NNPC is already increasing, Dangote is increasing. So that might not be the substance. That means that we might not have bought a more expensive PMS yet. But based on what's going on globally, increase is already happening. Because like I said, if it was a decrease of 20%, it will not be this instant. So the feelers are people should. It is what it is. It
is what it is. Okay, I also want to notice here that prices of things at the markets have started going up. Oh yeah, because I spent the entire day. I spent the entire day in the market. I think it was Lube markets, and then I discovered that there is massive changes in a lot of stuff. In fact, I was not even able to restock as much as I wanted to, because almost everything added at least 300. I think the minimum was 300 naira. So you see that by the time you now check 300 naira times the 10 things you're going to buy is 3,000 that maybe you would have budgeted for something else entirely, and then you now find yourself adding those extra costs. So I just want to note it here that this effect is already penetrating a lot of places, and people should really watch that. Okay, let's go on this quick break. When we come back, we'll now dive into the main conversation for today. Stay with us. You are welcome back. This is still the Business Lens to Rapid Television, Abuja. My name is Divine Alex, and I have with me economist Abiola Adekunle from Key to Market. Let's talk about the markets this week. Like I said, from the treasury bills auction that saw an oversubscription of 2.34 trillion naira to the Nigerian exchanges, 16.6% February rally that we all celebrated, right? Now, what does this really mean for investors? What does this mean for businesses? What does this mean for ordinary Nigerians? And that is what we are going to be discussing today. Now, I have with me, like I already said, economist Abiola Adekunle, and I want to get your thoughts on this, right? The CBN announced a 1.05 trillion naira treasury bills auction yesterday. Then they said they were going to auction it today, being March 5th of 2026, and then it attracted 2.34 trillion naira in bids. Eventually, they allotted 1.01 trillion naira across the 91 to the 182 and 364-day tenors, right? What does this oversubscription tell us about investor appetite for government securities in Nigeria today?
So what the meaning is quite simple. What it means is that people are becoming less risk averse. People don't really want to take so much risk again, or at least for now. The reason for that is because there's so many things going on, so many moving parts around the world right now. And what smart investors like to do is to pack their funds, pack their funds for safety. Then whenever the conditions look better, they now go more into business. Into more risky ventures or riskier ventures. But for now, what it means is a lot of people have funds lying around. An average current account will give you, let's say an average current account will give you less than 15% in a year, maybe about 8 or 9% or 10%. The same thing for a savings account. So at the end of the day, people want more guaranteed returns on their funds, but they don't want to take any of the risk. So what happens is that people now push funds into this kind of treasury bills, bonds, and all that, so that they know that to some extent they are guaranteed of a specific return that can at least keep their money at the same value, if not a little bit more. What do I mean? Now, whenever you're running investments anywhere in the world, you have to always consider the inflation rate. If the inflation rate is 20%, and you put in an investment that pays you 15%, if you put in 1 million, and at the end of the year they pay you 1 million and 15%, which is 1.115, that is 1,115,000. Now, inflation is more or less 20%. It has reduced the value of that money by 20%. So you would have made some money, but in actual fact, the value of your funds, your capital, has come down a little bit. So what people do is that when they are not ready to really push their money into businesses and investment and stocks that can actually give them a whole lot of profit in a year because of so many uncertainties, they park it in a place where they can hedge against inflation a little bit.
Okay.
So that is what we are seeing play out with the CBN. A lot of people are parking their funds so that at the end of the day, even if they cannot beat inflation, the monies that they are parked can at least remain on the same value point.
Okay, so now given this trend, right, do you expect yields to rise or fall in the coming months, especially, after this the recent NPL cuts that went from 27% to 26.5%?
Do I expect what to fall? The rates?
The yields, yes. The yields.
The yield will not fall because we want it to be attractive.
Okay.
The yield is not really based on the subscription. The yield is based on the acceptance of what the government is trying to dish out. There's a way you might tamper with the yield that you will see from oversubscription, you might go to undersubscription just like that. So I don't think that the yield would reduce.
Okay. Now, we had February 2026, seeing a massive climb that we all celebrated. The whole 16.6% that went to 192,827 points, which is the strongest monthly performance that we've had since, I think the last time was in January 2024. Now, what factors do you think drives this surge? Was it liquidity inflows? Do you think it's earnings resilience or investor optimism about macroeconomic environment?
Well, I think I said it then that one of the reasons is because AGM's payment of what's it called, dividends. When you want to pay dividends, you usually see a rise in activities. Excuse me. Then after that, you can now see that the market will go back and correct itself. So I think that's one of the reasons that happened in February, and we need to now see for the rest of the quarter, which is basically this month, to see what would happen. But for February, I just feel that majorly people were taking profit based on dividends. People took the normal profit in December, then February. Then now February also, I feel that a lot of pumping has been coming into the market. January, February, a lot of inflow of FPIs have been coming. Why? Because people invest at the beginning of the year. Everywhere in the world, usually is like a reset. People hire at the beginning of the year. People invest. How many investors do you see that will come and start investing in September? I'm not talking about stocks. Everybody wants to start with the year. So I think that this is also part of the move that pushed it to, I think, 1.29 trillion profit or something.
Now, so how much of this growth, is sustainable, considering the 1.11% dip that we had in the final week of February? Because, towards the end of February, we had a dip, which is 1.11% of it. So do you think this is sustainable, and how much of it is sustainable?
I don't think it is sustainable, except some other extraordinary things happen. I think that it's just like a spike that happened then, and for the remainder of the quarter and next quarter, we'll see a little bit of correction here and there. Now, if something like this happens again, it will not be due to the same factors as it was due to in January and February especially. So other things could happen that will spike our market, make profits go up, make us make even 2 trillion in a month, but they will not be the same reason as what happened in February. So no, I don't think this is sustainable, especially based on the reasons of what happened in February.
Okay, now with both the treasury bills oversubscribed and now we have the NGX hitting strong gains, do you see a rotation of funds between the fixed income markets and equities?
No. The reason is because these are different types of people. Okay. You won't say that. Let me use a not so good example. You won't say that because there is a rise, in petty thefts, that is people that steal without any form of arms, that you now say, then those that now use guns and whatever to rob will now move to petty. No, there are two different types of people. There are two different markets. You cannot say, because machine Okada is using electric now, then people will now sell their cars and go and buy motorcycles. No, there are two different markets. So the behavior of the investors there are also different. They are usually almost different people. So the connection is there, but it's not so strong. So I don't think I'll see a cycling of funds hovering or moving around from the stocks to the treasury bills. There are two different types of investors.
Now, speaking of investors, right? Could investors be using T-bills as a hedge while chasing equity gains in sectors like banking and industrials? Could they?
Extremely well, yes, because in the world of finance, people do hedging, people even go into multiple hedging, okay? Because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you want to come out on top. You want to come out unscathed. Meaning that it is possible for you to profit in two places, and it is also possible for you to profit in only one and lose in the other one and come down to zero. So nobody at the end of the day wants to lose their capital. So that is where hedging comes in from.
Okay.
People hedge with foreign currencies, people hedge based on different markets. Yes, I believe that people can actually do this.
Okay, now
They're actually doing it.
And they're actually doing it. Okay, now still on the T-bill, right? Are there risks that profit taking and the stock market could be amplified if the T-bill yields remain attractive?
Come again, please.
The risks, right? I said, are there risks, right, that that could be amplified, especially if we now look at the stock markets? That if the T-bill yields remain attractive, that's if the risks of profit taking in the stock market could be amplified. That's if we have the T-bill yields as it remains attractive.
I think there's some risk that could come up, basically because when you look at the attractiveness of the treasury bills, even though we have different investors, right? We could still have a little bit of a draining effect on the stocks market based on what is going on with the treasury bills. But it's not a great risk. It's just something very minute at the end of the day.
Okay. Now, for businesses that are looking to raise capital or manage cash, how do these developments, right? The development I'm talking about is the NGX performance that is strong, and then we have the T-bills that is now oversubscribed, right? How do these now affect borrowing costs and investment decisions? Could this signal a more favorable environment for corporate financing or expansion plans? Which of them?
Well, if you are on the stock market already as a company,
okay,
and your stocks is getting a whole lot of value, increase in value, already it means you have more money. But also, this usually goes down to how a company decides to spend their funds. Okay, for example, if I have a company that is listed on the stock exchange, and by reason of stock increase, we have access to 2 billion naira more. There are internal processes on how such funds should be spent. But yes, I believe that more funds are being made available to companies, and I think that we should be seeing expansion. But another thing I think would happen more for some companies might be diversification instead of expansion of what they are currently. For example, if you have a palm oil company that is doing very well, and they have access to a whole lot more funds because of the increase in the value of their stocks on the stock exchange or on the NGX, and they might decide not to expand their palm oil business. They might decide they want to go into sugar, okay, as a way to hedge whatever is going on in the palm oil sector. So more money being available might not really go into expansion most of the time. It might go more into diversification for those companies.
Okay, now looking back at last year's trends, especially 2025, how is this scenario different in terms of capital availability and cost of funding?
2025 was more of the one of a kind year because the things that happened were quite things that we've not really seen in a while. So we can't really compare 2025 to 2026 years. 2026 is just forming. It's not even a fetus yet. It's not developed into a baby yet. So we need to come back to this question around October, November.
Okay.
Because there's no big comparison yet.
Okay. Now, finally, right? What does all this mean for the average Nigerian with treasury bills that is now offering high yields, and then we have the equities that is showing strong gains? How should everyday investors think about protecting their savings or growing wealth in this environment?
I think an average Nigerian should get involved in treasury bills
Okay.
because it's something that is possible for an average person to have savings to actually lock in. But because why I'm saying this is I'm being optimistic. An average Nigerian can be said to be very close to poverty. When you see the average earnings, the amount people are earning and living, the household earning and all that. So it's a way of gradual escape, but it's not that easy, because if you have a savings of, let's say, #1 million, how much can #1 million get you, based on treasury bills or based on the market? I'm not saying you cannot make money, you can, but we're just looking everything side by side, other priorities in their households and in their lives.
Yes.
So for an average Nigerian, the optimism and the advice is that they should get into treasury bills, they should get into stocks, because just going from income to expenditure has never been the best. We know that the ways that the rich keep getting richer is that they go from income to investments, then their investments eventually pay for their expenditures. And that is why you see a rich man changing his car every 3-4 months, every year. He's not paying for it from his sweat or from his income. He's paying for it from the results and the profits of his investment. I know for an average man, this might be like a tall order, because how much do you want to put into investment that can start taking care of your lifestyle? But the thing is, you cannot do it in a day, but you have to start. They say that even the journey of 1,000 miles will start with a step.
Yes, it starts with a step. Now, before you go, do these trends have any potential impact on inflation, cost of living, or even interest rates that people should watch closely for?
I think there's an indirect way for it to affect inflation and cost of living, and this is it.
Tell me more. Okay.
I less than 10% of Nigerians participate in this. So what it means, I'm talking about treasury bills and stocks and all these investments, less than 10% of Nigerians. Now, if less than 10% of Nigerians make a whole lot of money for themselves, they are still going to buy from the same markets that the remaining 90% are shopping. So there can actually be a form of inflation, because we have people that have a whole lot of funds with them, and we have people that don't have. And at some point in time, market can start gravitating, towards such people. Look at what happened in December in Lagos. They called Dirty December. A lot of people that were giving out short-let apartments spiked their rates. Why? Because they felt that the people that had funds were coming from outside and would patronize them. Now, we also have a whole lot of people that have always been in Lagos that used to patronize them but could not afford them during the Christmas season. So a lot of them at the end of the day spiked their rates, which is like a local inflation, and at the end of the day did not get patronage, while some got patronage. Why did this happen? Because a very minute amount or percentage of people that had the funds were going to be around. So this is like a bigger scenario, by the time we expand it into whatever is going to happen or whatever is going on with the stocks and the treasury bills. The moment wealth spreads across, then naturally you see that apart from whatever the government is trying to do, inflation would naturally be lowered.
Okay, do you have any other thing you want to add to the conversation today?
Yeah, I just want to say that at the end of the day, everybody should do what they can do to better themselves. And one of the ways you can know what to do is by reading, is by getting yourself knowledge. When we're growing up, there used to be scarcity of knowledge. I remember as an engineering student, when the semester opens, I used to rush into the library because we had then just some of our textbooks then, like maybe what's called strength of materials and all that. We had limited books. So you have to go and quickly secure your book because there was limited knowledge, there was limited access to to knowledge. But now we are in a generation where there is overwhelming knowledge at your fingertips in your phone. So you cannot give that excuse anymore that the material I'm looking for to better myself is not there. Read about it. Read about the stocks market. Read about treasury bills. Read about how can you safely move your money from 1 million to 1.5 million at a time. Then continue doing it over and over again. Everything you need for that is at your fingertips. So what I would like to say is people should read more, because an educated population is a progressive population at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you so much. That is definitely a punchline. Thank you so much, Economist Isabella, for being on the show today. And that's it for today's Business Lens. From fuel prices reacting to global tensions to Nigeria's gold reserves that is not strengthened and investors snapping up treasury bills, we've shown you how these events directly touch your wallet, your savings, and the economy at large. Keep following us for the numbers that matters and the stories that shape your business and your daily life. I am Divine Alex, and we'll see you on the next episode of Business Lens. Don't forget to stay with Rapid TV. Bye for now.